to my main man roll.
Yes, we're men on a mission.
Men on a mission, men on a mission.
We're men on a mission.
Here we go, here we go, here we go.
We're men on a mission.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Stay Hot podcast. I hope all my WWE fans got my little intro there. Hope you guys remember the tag team Men on a Mission with Mo and Mabel. Aptly named this podcast Men on a Mission because that's what I feel like Mark Pope, Mo Williams, McLean, and the coaching staff have been on a mission this week. Maybe we should have listened to Pope, after the season when he told Dave Baker to trust him. He was going to. Wow. Gary Hornback says Zoom just committed. That wasn't how I planned on starting this show, but let me see if I can find that before we move on, because I think once the pieces start to fall, I'm seeing something, but I don't know how much of it. I've not seen anything official, so I'm not going to report that just yet, Gary. I see there's a lot of fakes out there, and I've been caught myself by a couple of the fakes. I'm in a pretty big group chat, and I've not really seen anything. If somebody from the BBN Hall of Fame can, kind of show me where we got that, I'll put it up on the screen. But I'm not going to break that just yet because, I'm on Twitter and I follow enough people on Twitter that, I believe I would see it as soon as I logged on if that was true. Now, there are a lot of things that have broke recently that some of you may not know about that I'll discuss as far as visitors go, but I'm not 100% sure. And just scrolling through, I've passed several Kentucky media personnel, and I'm not seeing anything, confirming that Zoom Diallo has committed. But to get right into the show, let's talk a little bit about our Kentucky players that are going out. First, Mo Diabate is currently on his visit to St. John's. He posted a picture, I think, on his Instagram or Snapchat or something a little bit later or a little bit earlier today saying that he was in New York. Jalen Lowe, I wish we would have got to see a healthy Jalen Lowe in Kentucky. We saw signs of what Jalen Lowe could do when he was healthy, but he never really got to put it all together because he couldn't stay healthy long enough. But he committed to Georgetown today, which, he started out in Pitt, so Georgetown may be a pretty good fit for Jalen. Brandon Garrison decided to stay in the SEC, so he committed to Alabama and Nate Oates. We're going to go see BG time when he comes to Lexington. It just always seems to be in my mind that, anytime somebody leaves Kentucky and they come back to play against Kentucky, seems like they have the game of their life. So I do wish BG nothing but the best. I was glad he kind of went out on a high note. He had a good game in the SEC tournament, I believe. And I just, I like BG, and I thought he was a really good ambassador for our university. I'm not going to say he didn't frustrate me on the court, because by all means he did, but I wish him the best. Jasper Johnson has been getting a lot of attention from SEC schools. I think it was believed that Jasper would go to North Carolina because they recruited him so hard once, last year when he committed to Kentucky. And, I've not really heard much from North Carolina with Malone being the head coach now from the Denver Nuggets. The number one point guard in the class was just told to basically decommit and find another place, that they've kind of parted ways with him. And I think his last name is Mingo. He also has an older brother in the portal, so I don't know if that's something that would be a package deal. I'm sure those two would love to play together. But I know the Mingo from North Carolina, that was the number one point guard in the class, has they've been kind of parted ways. But Trent Noah did make the announcement that he was going to return. I think it's partly sad that Trent Noah had to turn off his comments on his post saying he was going to return, because who knows what was going to be said. And I think that just kind of shows you kind of like how toxic this fan base can be at times. But I think also there's been a few things happen this week that shows you just how passionate, how good our fan base really is. And we'll talk about that here in a second. And last but not least, I think the only player on the roster we haven't heard from is Jaden Quaintance, who I really thought would be the first player to make a decision or to announce, because I thought it was set in stone or determined that he was going to the NBA. He was going to be in college this year. I think he had every plans on going one and done. But, after he got injured at Arizona State, he decided to come to Kentucky. We only got to see 4 games of him in Kentucky blue and white, but I think it was just automatically assumed that he was going to go to the NBA. But as it's been stated on this show, it's been stated on every social media, that he's contemplating a return to college. They haven't necessarily said a return to Kentucky, but it's not set in stone anymore that he's going to the NBA. And I think the reason being is this 26 NBA class is flat loaded. If you look at college basketball this year and you see all the talented freshmen, Caleb Wilson's one of those freshmen that he declared for the NBA today. But that's a very talented freshman class and a very talented NBA draft class as a whole. And the 27th, or the class of 27, the NBA draft class of 27, has always appeared to be weaker, or it's been, that draft class isn't as strong as the class of 26. So with him playing so few games, it's believed that his draft stock was hurt, that he was slipping. I know he was one time a top 5 pick. Then I know he went to lottery. Now I think the latest mock draft had him at like 20. But, if Jaden comes back to Kentucky, that may tell me why that Pope hasn't really pursued a lot of centers. We will talk about one a little bit later, in Magoon Gwath. I think 2 days ago, he was predicted 100% to UK, and everybody thought he'd committed. That's not the case. I think Kentucky's still the team to beat with him if they want him. I did see on Twitter that he is going to be making a visit later on this week, but the numbers are already out there with him for an NIL package, and I'll tell you what that is. I just did see it. This is coming from CJ Deck Sports. Magoon Gwath, he's from San Diego State. It says that Kentucky wants 2 years, up to $8 million with incentives. Those incentives would be $500,000 for making the All-SEC team, $1.5 million bonus for returning for his senior year, and $30K per NCAA tournament win. Maybe I might be getting had like Gary did, because I'm still not seeing anything regarding Zoom Diallo. Although it's very possible, I believe, that Zoom could commit. It's being rumored more and more, or it's being talked about more and more, that Stokes, Wright, and Diallo, all 3, could play together. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. But I kind of thought 2 year, $8 million. So that's basically $4 million a year. I thought those were pretty high numbers for Gwath. So, we'll see. And I think once he gets on campus and a visit, we'll start getting a little bit more intel from his visit and how it went. It's just, the thing is nowadays, you don't really know what to believe and what not to believe when you see something on the internet. I thought Mark Pope tweeted something this morning saying, got a long day ahead of me, a big day, time to lock in. I quote tweeted it and said, "Let's go, coach, let's lock in." And it was a parody account. It wasn't even Mark Pope. So, you can't just look at their screen name. You got to look at the @ name, and I failed to do that. So I fell victim to it too. So it happens. But Matt Jones is reported recently, and you can take this for how you want, but he feels very good about one of the 2 that's currently on a visit, and the other one, he won't know more until the visit's over. So I think if we were betting people, you would bet that the Rob Wright, the visit's going well for him. Although if you look at different places on X and on Twitter, you'll see that a lot of people say that, Rob Wright's visit's going poorly. He's going to return to BYU. But if you look at 3 more other people's tweets, they're going to say it's going great. He's ready to commit. But it's all about what you believe to be the case on Twitter. So I try to find those people that have done this for a while. Travis Branham, 24/7, Jeff Goodman, CBS, some of these guys that have done it. And we'll talk about those guys because they've put out some interesting comments today. And I will, kind of tell you all what they say, but I'll let you all form your own opinions on what you think or how you think that stuff's going. But the one of the things, I talked about Trent Noah turning off his comments on Twitter when his return post. And, that just seems to me that if you're upset as a Kentucky fan that a Kentucky boy has agreed to come back for another year, that you start bashing him, his family, his play, or whatever, I think that says way more about you than it does about Trent Noah. And honestly, if you want to know the truth, Noah probably knows that if Pope, hits a home run with these recruits and the portal as a whole, he probably is aware that he's probably going to be 10th, 11th man. But he's from Kentucky. He bleeds blue. He wears it across his chest. He's one that could probably say that he's KY till he dies. And I think that's something we should appreciate and we should admire out of Trent Noah instead of being first to go on there and criticize or bash him for different things. But, as toxic as that, and I've said it for years that the Big Blue Nation does have a small percentage of fans that I believe to be toxic. I will also say that there's been points in times, over my years that I've been one of those people that were quick to go to Twitter or Facebook and say things I shouldn't have said. However, I think it's a very small percentage that's toxic. And I think, it's kind of like the biggest mouth gets fed or the loudest voice gets heard. We hear about all that because they're the loudest. They don't stop. But also, I think this week also shows us how awesome this fan base is. And if you're on social media, you're aware of the Kentucky Banner Boys. And I think this is a really cool story. They've been getting a lot of publicity, a lot of press. I know Matt Jones paid for their food today, sent them pizza. But, I saw something on Twitter I thought was funny. It said that, Kentucky's still hanging banners. They're just sheep banners. And if you're on Twitter, go to @KY Banner Boys and give those guys a follow. They started out this week of putting a banner up basically saying "Come home Stokes." And it started getting a lot of attention. And when they heard that Rob Wright III was making a visit, then they put up a banner, "Come home, Rob." And, but what's great about this is, and I know you all have probably seen this by now.
Oh, let's go, boy.
Here, this is a video of Mo Williams and I think Mikael McLean stopping, taking pictures of the signs. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the two coaches has been reported to being on FaceTime with Donnie Freeman. And as they go through the video, and I'll let you watch real quick. It's only about maybe a minute long.
Oh, let's go, boys. Let's go. Let's go, boys. Come on. Let's do it, Coach Mo. Go. Let's lock it in tomorrow, baby. Get it done. Come on.
And it appears to me that maybe Mo was the one on the FaceTime with Freeman because he was the one that looks like his phone was pointing towards the banners. And, and I think, I don't know if they didn't record the whole thing or what, but it was reported on Twitter that they told them that they were talking to Donnie Freeman on FaceTime. And Donnie said, well, they got one more name to put up there. And before you know it, they added the third name. So now if you go by there, you see "Come home, Rob," "Come home, Stokes," "Come home, Donnie," which I think is really cool of these guys there. I think it's a fraternity in Lexington. that has done this, but I think that's really neat. But the really cool thing was there's been football players that have stopped by to get their picture taken. I know Willie Rodriguez stopped by. I know Mario Matlin of Kentucky Sports Radio stopped by to get pictures. There's been several different news stations that have stopped by. I've seen them on the news being interviewed tonight. Haven't had a chance to watch those interviews just yet because I was preparing for this show. But I thought that story was kind of neat, how it started with one name. It went to two. The UK coaching staff stopped by.
Let's go.
And then they put up the name. Kind of a cool sport of Donnie Freeman to let them know they got one more name to put up there. And, that this is the part of the fan base that I think the majority of Big Blue Nation is. And I think most of you might have agreed with me. I think our negativity of the fan base is a very small percentage. But I thought this was really cool. And I'm hoping now, I think it's currently, I know Rob Wright Jr. Didn't land in Kentucky or didn't get on campus till about 6:00 p.m. tonight. I do know that I was worried about Stokes's visit ending before Rob Wright arrived, but I did some messaging of some people that would know, and they told me that their visits were overlapping, which is good because I think those two generally want to play together. And I think Rob, if he's all on board for Kentucky, and there's people out there that will tell you that it's a done deal, Rob and Stokes both to Kentucky. I don't believe that because I don't think that Stokes' number one spot to land is at Kentucky. And he said that out of his own mouth. However, money does talk, and Nike is a really big player in this game. And I think Nike is kind of helping him or helping us by sending him to a Nike school. All right, Jason corrected me. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, I said last week that McLean he coached Donnie Freeman on the Bahamas national team. So it was McLean that was on FaceTime with Donnie. So thanks for pointing that out. I couldn't really tell whose camera was pointing towards the banners, but I thought that was really cool. It is but yeah, they the banner boys have, but here's the funny thing. I've seen some of the newer aged Kentucky fans acting like these sheets, this was a one-time thing. I remember back in 2012 when the Cats won the title and banners being hung in Lexington, couches being burned. So these banners aren't something new, but I think these guys have brought them back up and kind of revolutionized the city. They started a revolution because if you look around, there's places in Owensboro that've got Come Home Rob, Come Home Stokes, Come Home Donnie. There's multiple houses in Lexington that have jumped on this. So I'm hoping that they've taken these guys around the city to see all this, to know just how bad they're wanted in Lexington, because I do think it does play a small part in, kind of making them feel at home. There has been, and this may be of what, this may have been what, let me find out who said it. Gary was talking about, there's been multiple transfer portal predictions of Zoom Diallo to Kentucky, but they're just predictions. They said his visit went really, really well. From what we're hearing, this will be the second commit. Rob Wright III, they're thinking is already commit of a big wave of Kentucky commits. So they're thinking that Diallo and Rob Wright may have already committed. Who played high school together? Are you talking about Donnie and oh no, you're talking about Stokes and Zoom, right? Sean's one of these negative Nancys. He says he'll bet $200 Stokes don't come. Also, Chris Adams is dumb. He's the problem with UK fans. Fake wait till Louisville beat us by 20 again. I wouldn't go bring up Louisville because I'm not a Louisville fan, but Louisville's striking gold in the portal. They got Badunga. They got is it Shelton or Shetland or somebody from Oregon, and they also got they're also about to land the St. Mary's power forward that's arguably the number one player in the transfer portal. I've seen him as low as 5 and as high as 1. It's that P guy that I can't pronounce his name. Gary still says they both have already committed. Quincy says 3 commits tonight. Like I said, I follow a lot of Kentucky people, and don't get me wrong, but Matt Jones would already be reporting this if it was true. And Jenna Leifshin, she's from the BBN Hall of Fame group. She is reporting that the Banner Boys have said that McLean brought people by to see the Banners tonight in his truck. Potentially had some special passengers in his truck. So, that's right. I knew it was Stokes and Zoom. Yeah, I when you said that, I knew what he's talking about. But I also know there's some AAU ties there, and some people have reported that. And this is why I thought it was huge to get a visit from Stokes in April. The reason I thought it was huge was because he'd been a lock to Kansas for some time now, but there's people reporting that the only reason he visited was he wanted to see what Mo Williams had to say. And then we got, KY Till I Die says, Zoom boom. Let me search for Cody Feger here and see if he's put a boom out. The last boom Cody Feger put out was on March 27th, and I would say that is that was probably Cam Williams returning. But speaking of Zoom Diallo, they said his visit went well, and the only thing I'd really heard about Zoom after he left Lexington was that if he left Lexington without committing, it may be kind of hard for Kentucky to get that commitment. Now, who's to say that he didn't commit while he was at Kentucky, but it just hadn't been out yet? But because he is supposedly was going to take a visit to Arizona. And when I saw Arizona, just, within the last couple hours, they received a commitment from a JJ Mandequit and he was from Washington as well. And Derek Dixon, who was at North Carolina. Those are both guards that have committed to Arizona in the last couple hours. That kind of led me to believe that Arizona was out with Zoom and that, Kentucky was still in a really good position with Zoom. And like I said, I really do think, where there's smoke, there's fire. And there's a lot of smoke right now about Zoom, Stokes, and Rob Wright all playing together. And I'll tell you why. If you go on YouTube and you look for the show today that Jack Pilgrim did with Polachek and Zach, I can't pronounce his last name either, starts with a G. All 3 of them are kind of like the lead writers for the 3 Kentucky podcasts that are, huge right now. And Jack Pilgrim reported that Kentucky approached Tyron Stokes. That Kentucky approached Tyron Stokes and said, what 2 guys do you want to play with? You tell us, what 2 guys do you want to play with that's going to bring you here? And the only 2 names he mentioned were Zoom and Rob Wright III. And if those 2 guys are looking to commit, or some people believe they've already committed, then there's a pretty good chance that I say Stokes does as well. If we get all 3 of those, then I think we all owe Mark Pope an apology, and I'll be first in line because I had very little faith in Pope after, the comment he made, just telling us to be patient with him. He's got it all under control. I hadn't really seen him hit a home run yet, and I was a little skeptical to say the least. However, he pulls these 3, and I think I said it earlier on Twitter today, if you follow me on Twitter. If not, you can follow me at PT Kelch, at PTKELSCH on Twitter. And I think I said that if Mark Pope lands all 3 of these recruitments, this is something that'll be talked about in history books for the near future. Like, this is monumental. And, but, you know, the thing that kind of scared me about Rob Wright, and I'm not going to lie, you know, I think it's been set in stone since Rob Wright entered the portal that there was only two places he was going to go: Kentucky or back to BYU. Jeff Goodman stated earlier in one of his videos that, you know, UK was a heavy favorite for Rob Wright unless they do something to screw that up. So then I listened to Jack Pilgrim and Polachek, and they both kind of thought that it was a little bit closer than that. Didn't think Kentucky had a real huge advantage in his recruitment. They really thought that he was going to be hard to pull away from BYU. But KY Tilladai says Stokes vocally committed earlier. Last I heard. I hope you're right. I have nothing to prove that wrong or nothing to prove that right. By all means, I hope you're 100% correct. But, you know, Goodman is one of those people that I trust because he's done it a long time. He's got a lot of sources. However, I think the best approach in recruiting is, you know, don't necessarily believe everything you read, because you're going to read 125 different conflicting reports. So wait till you hear it from the university. Wait till you hear from somebody like Matt Jones, somebody who's got inside sources, because who's to say it couldn't just be somebody who made up a Twitter account, you know, pretending to be a UK fan that's just saying a bunch of this stuff that isn't true. Or but I've also read today from some pretty reliable sources that although they may have committed, there won't be any announcements tonight. So I don't know how true that is either, but that's just what we said. Steve, I see that as well. I'm just saying I owe him an apology because I've been nothing but hard on him and criticizing him for his lack of recruiting. And, you know, if he proves me wrong, then I will admit that he proved me wrong. But you're right. We don't necessarily owe him anything. That may have been a bad choice of words to use. But Jason points out that Pilgrim did say Wright's dad loved the idea of Mo Williams working with Rob. And he did say that. He did say that. But I've also seen some things that Rob Wright's dad said when he was at BYU that I don't know if I want it could be similar to a former player's family that we've read this year about how unhappy they've been. So, you know, sometimes those parents are great and sometimes they can be a little toxic. You know, let's hope that, you know, his Wright's dad's gotten past all that. And if you look hard enough on social media, you'll be able to find what I'm talking about. But I want to show you this video that, and this is why I was nervous. I didn't say anything the last podcast, but let me get this. All right, let me share my screen here. All right. Share screen, Twitter. Let me remove that first.
For that to be the last game of the season, but I feel like as a group we just fought hard. We didn't give up.
All right, sometimes these things are hard to maneuver here because you may have to turn up your volume. I don't know how loud. All right, that says it's loud, but he's kind of quiet.
West Virginia, Cincinnati. You could have just crumbled.
All right, I can't really hear that, and I'm sitting right here beside it, so I wouldn't expect you all to hear. Let me see if I can do something about that. Let me see if I can go down here. All right, this may be the thing.
Season could have just been just bad, and even today we went down 17, and we could have just gave up, but we chose to just fight to the end.
What does the future look like for you?
The future looks like for me, I mean, obviously, if I'm in a college jersey, I would be attending BYU for sure.
Yeah, let's do that, huh?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Let's listen to that again. Listen that closely to what he said here.
Just bad, and even even today we went down 17 and we could have just gave up, but we chose to just fight to the end.
What does the future look like for you?
The future looks like for me. I mean, obviously, if I'm in a college jersey, I would be attending BYU for sure.
Yeah, let's do that, huh?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not going to lie. That's why I kind of felt like he wouldn't be in Kentucky blue. He seemed so definite. And believe me, right. And that's the one thing that right after these kids have played their last game, you know, the number one question now is, you know, reporters are sticking the microphone in their face and say, you know, what's your future look like? And at that point in time, what are they supposed to say? You know, yeah, I'm going to enter the portal, or yeah, I'm done with BYU. However, you know, when he seemed 100% definite that if I'm back in a college uniform, it'll be at BYU. So I thought that was kind of interesting. You know, for him to make that kind of statement, but it's kind of like the same thing with Jasper Johnson making a statement, KY till I die. And he still can be, because he is from Kentucky. You know, he probably is appreciative of Kentucky and, you know, having the opportunity. But, you know, when you come out making statements like that, you know, it's almost open yourself up for criticism and things when you don't follow through. You know, you come out and say, yeah, if I'm back in a college uniform next year, it'll definitely be at BYU. And I think the reporter says something and he says, yeah, most definitely. So, but, you know, we have Rob Wright on campus right now. Don't really care what he said 5 days ago. I'm one of those ones that, you know, the money ain't mine. I want Kentucky basketball to be competitive. I want them to be good. I want them to be the gold standard. So it ain't my money. Spend it all. So, no, hold on. Captain Crashes, Gary might not be trolling. No, I don't think Gary was purposely trying to troll. Gary's in here every week with me talking Kentucky basketball. I think he probably saw something on Twitter where somebody was predicting, because if you don't read the whole thing, it does look kind of looks like, because it'll show their name, for example, Zoom Diallo, and it'll have an arrow, then it'll say Kentucky. Almost kind of look like he's, picking Kentucky, when basically it's just a sports site's prediction that's where he's going to go. So, but, I thought it was also interesting that when Zoom Diallo left, I read multiple reports saying that he wasn't open to playing with Rob Wright, that he wanted to be the primary point guard, or he wanted to be the primary guard, that he wasn't open to playing with, another guard like Rob Wright. And then, Stokes comes out and says, yeah, if there's two of them that I can play with, I definitely want to play with Zoom Diallo and Rob Wright. And now it seems like all three of them are back in, all three of them are back in the picture, I should say. But, here's what I know. We're the only campus in the country right now. It's got both of them on campus. So, and I think Mo Williams is going to prove to us to be very, very beneficial and very deserving of his salary, because I think he's going to lock them both down. And, I did say the last show that I didn't feel like us losing Alvin Brooks or Jason Hart was going to be that huge of a loss, because I really didn't see him do a whole lot. There are several outlets reporting, and I know one of them is a guy in the group chat named Kerry, I think his name is. He follows a lot of stuff, and it's been rumored to be said that that big news is about to drop. Now, you decide what that big news is. I'm hoping that all three of them commit at one time, and they don't drop a bomb or a boom. They drop a whole nuke. And I would love to see all three of them commit at the same time. And I honestly believe that if all three of those guys commit, I think that puts a little bit of pressure on Jaden Quaintance and may make him want to return. I think, we don't really know what our 4 is going to look like yet. I think it's almost pretty safe to bet that the guy from St. Mary's isn't even considering Kentucky. I'm hoping we can lock down Donnie Freeman. I will say this, that several insiders believe that Kentucky is it's like a blowout game, they said, for Kentucky and Donnie Freeman. Kentucky's so far ahead of everybody else in Landon Freeman. But they also said that if Kentucky doesn't get a commitment on Wednesday and they let him take his visit to UConn on Friday, because he did say that he was taking a visit to UConn on Friday, if Kentucky doesn't lock him down when he visits, don't be shocked if Connecticut don't seal the deal. But it's just all this stuff happens so fast, and all these decisions change with every second, every minute. I was 100% certain that we weren't getting Tyron Stokes. And I think that's because I didn't want to build myself up. I didn't want to convince myself to believe that it was a possibility, because the media, the insiders, everybody has led me to believe for months that Kansas was where it's at. But, I see a lot of different people pointing stuff. I'll check again on Twitter here. Right now, if you follow Tyron Stokes on Instagram, he's currently live shooting in Rupp Arena. That's coming from Matt Jones. So if you follow Tyron Stokes on Instagram, he's shooting jumpers in Rupp Arena right now. It looks to me like somebody just fired one up from half court. I don't know if it's him. I don't know who it is, but there's you can it's actually being shared on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, I'll repost it right now so you can follow it easier. But he's currently inside Rupp Arena. So here it is at 9:42 on Monday night, and he's still there. I think that's a good sign. And, I still haven't seen any 100% commitments or proof about Wright and Diallo, but I'm like most of you guys. I do believe that it's going to happen. I'm getting on board with that. But Donnie Freeman is like that 4. I saw somebody compare Donnie today, and I don't know if this is a true or an accurate representation, but they pointed and acted as if Freeman was overrated and that he was like a Brandon Garrison, but worse. We've watched Brandon Garrison for a couple years. I don't think by any stretch of the imagination that I would compare Donnie Freeman to Brandon Garrison. The one thing that I think I like about Donnie Freeman is, and if you were to go to his stats, last year, 17, 18 points a game, 8 rebounds, 48% from the field, which may be a little low, but he also shoots 30 or above from the 3-point line. So he may be more of a typical 4 for Pope. Obviously, I think Pope would have liked to have had St. Mary power forward, but it looks to me like he's going to probably end up at Louisville, as much as I hate to say that. Louisville's already crushed it in the portal, but it looks like they may end up pulling this guy from St. Mary's too. So, but for the rest of this week, Freeman's going to he's going to visit tomorrow, Wednesday. Jalen Cox, the guard from Colgate, he's the one that I really liked. I really did. I think his numbers were good. I know his numbers weren't very good, I think, against higher profile competition, but I think he'd be a really good backup. And I'll tell you the number that kind of surprised me the most, and it shouldn't surprise me with how we are today, but the backup point guard position is going for about $1 million. Backup point guard going for about $1 million. And, but Jalen Cox or Alex Wilkins, who is the kid from Furman, that I think Pope is really high on. They Pope flew out to South Carolina to see him last weekend, I believe, and he's getting both of them guys on campus. So there, I think he's looking at depth pieces. And I know people are speculating and saying, well, if Cox, Wilkins are coming to campus, that's not good for Diallo or that's not good for Wright. You've got to cast a wide net. You've got to cast a wide net and you got to have backup options, but you also got to have depth pieces. Look what happened this year when we had, 3 starters injured for a significant part of the year. You've got to have significant players that can play in the SEC backup positions for when foul trouble or those injuries happen. And that's something I don't feel like we had this year. I don't feel like we had that depth that we needed when we got late in the conference season. But Jalen Cox is coming. Alex Wilkins is coming this week. I did see before I got online that Magoon Wath or whatever, he is he's coming to campus, although a lot think that's already, a done deal. I told you those numbers I saw, 2-year, $8 million with incentives. And also heard Terrence Brown. And if I'm not mistaken, Terrence Brown's the guard from Utah that was just a high-level scorer. But if I'm not mistaken, I think Terrence Brown was at North Carolina today. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm believing he was at North Carolina. I didn't get to see a lot of Utah's games this year where they play on the West Coast. But it's like, Terrence Brown is also visiting. I think he's at Carolina. He's also visiting to Kentucky, Kansas, and there's another one. So what I've come to find out about the portal, and you all know this as well, and a lot of people think Donnie Freeman is doing this to where they're telling the coaching staff that they're going to visit, that they have other visits planned, like Connecticut on Friday, to kind of drive up that price of the current school. And, and a lot of people think that Rob Wright was doing that with BYU, coming on this visit to Kentucky to try to drive up the price. But, I don't think BYU, I think I read somewhere where they weren't willing to pay $4.5 million for his services. Chris is pointing out. Yeah, Jason, that's what I said. I thought it was North Carolina, but yeah, I know he's visiting us as well. But Chris points out that Momchilovich, he's the guy from Iowa State, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's Iowa State. Or is that right, Iowa State? I believe. And I got to look it up here because I hate. Yeah, Iowa State. Okay. Yeah, it's says he's the best guy in the portal now. He fits Pope's system perfectly, and we can't let him go to Florida. I think the thing we're not talking about here is he's only going to be in the portal as if he withdraws from the draft. I think he's going to the draft first. And then if he withdraws from the draft, going to get that feedback like Marino's doing. I saw where Malik Thomas from Arkansas is doing the same thing. Then if they decide to come back, then they'll be in the portal. And so I definitely agree that he fits Pope's system perfectly. I definitely believe he's the best guy in the portal, but I wouldn't consider him 100% in the portal just yet because I think he's going to go to the NBA draft because I think he will be I think he'll be drafted. But I think it's pretty exciting, when the portal first opened on April 7th, Big Blue Nation seemed to be doom and gloom. And, we didn't hear Kentucky making any splashes in the portal. We didn't really hear of, they were reaching out, contacting people, or all you would see on Twitter or social media is Kentucky's expected to be in contact here. Kentucky's expected for a Zoom call here, that nature. And then it's like Stokes Zoom Diallo visited last weekend. Then when Stokes said that he was making a visit, which I thought right then that was a great sign, because I heard that he wasn't going to make any more visits or make any visits for that matter. And I thought that was a good sign. Next thing you know, Rob Wright's visiting. And to me, it's just, dominoes are starting to fall. And a lot of people have said once Kentucky gets the first commitment, you'll see a lot more dominoes fall into place. And I think it's a real exciting time for that, because, right now our roster consists of Trent Noah, Brandon Hawthorne, Cam Williams, and I think there's very slim chance of Jaden Quaintance. I know what's been reported. I know what he said. I know what others have said. But I just don't think there's any chance whatsoever that Jaden Quaintance comes back to college basketball. But Stokes keeps coming back to his phone on Instagram Live, and I couldn't tell. He just went down something like this. I couldn't tell if he was doing L's down. He's from Louisville, so I wouldn't think it. I would assume that he's pointing at the comments. If you follow Cat's coverage on Twitter, they just posted it 3 minutes ago. Go check that out. I think he's pointing at the comments. I know there's been some Louisville fans hurt that he's not coming home, what they call it, because he's from Louisville. But it's crazy to me to think that he would be dropping an L's down on a live stream. But I think Quaintance will end up going to the NBA. I think he'll take his first round pick, his first round money, and run. Who's to say that if he comes back to college for another year, that his draft stock's going to improve significantly to where he works his way back into a lottery pick? You never know. But the people I've talked to says that Stokes is an immediate impact. He's a game changer. Jacob Polachek talked to a couple NBA scouts after the Nike Hoop Summit, and they all raved about him, saying he was clearly the best player in the country. Nobody even close, Europe or, in the world. There wasn't even anybody in the world close, not just the country. And that, Polachek believed that, or was it Zach? Zach believed that getting Stokes right now is better than any of the top 5 players in the portal. Take that for what it's worth. Yeah, I was going to say Jacob Paycheck, but I didn't know if everybody knew who I was talking about. So I just ran Polachek out there, although I refer to him as Paycheck too. So it's who I'd like to know, who do you support? I love winning. Well, that's supposed to be winning, I'm assuming. There's one in shy, but I love winning. KY Sports. Who do you support? You've thrown the UC kids' names out there a couple weeks in a row now about those guys, and now when NBA scouts call him the best player in the country, you're saying it's BS hype. I don't think NBA scouts get paid extra to hype up players or hype up their talent. So I have to disagree with you that it's BS hype. Now, that's just me. You're entitled to your own opinion. I think that's what makes us all great, and I think that's what makes good discussion, is that we all do have our own opinion. But I don't consider BS hype when it's coming from NBA scouts who are, do that job for a living. But, I will say I read a lot of Travis Branham and Jeff Goodman, and this is kind of, what they said. This is kind of before the visit to Kentucky, which it would make sense. Branham says he believes Kansas is the slight leader for Stokes, though that's before the latter visits Lexington to hear Kentucky's last-ditch effort. But going into the visit, Kansas was still the leader in Branham's eyes based on what his sources said. In regards to Wright, while many believe Kentucky is the leader, Branham says he believes it's much more of a toss-up right now between the Wildcats and returning to BYU, so don't count the Cougars out just yet. So Branham doesn't seem to think Kentucky, was leading for Stokes, or actually I don't think he was leading before Stokes before this visit either. But he seems to think that Rob Wright will return to BYU before he'll go to Kentucky. I disagree. I'm not 100% sure when we'll hear something. I just know that, a lot of the people I talk to on Twitter, and I will show you. Let me find this. I'll show you the picture I was talking about a while ago. That a lot of them say we're not going to hear anything tonight. Like it's been mentioned already, it may be 100% that but Wright and Zoom have already committed. They may be waiting till they talk to the other schools before they announce it. Sometimes I know, just being a coach, dealing with some recruiting, not necessarily on this level. I've never been, blessed to coach the best player in the country. But, I have had players that go to college, and a lot of times before they'll make the commitment public, they'll go talk to all the coaches that they were actively recruiting them, thanking them for their time and, how hard of a decision it was and things like that. So, I think Zoom may have committed before he ever left Lexington, but that's just me. I don't know. But here's the picture I was talking about. Let me see if I can, there's Stokes inside Rupp Arena. And I think it's, a lot of people are saying that's L's down. I disagree. You got people telling him to get out of that place. You got some Kentucky fans saying this is so hype, but by no means do I think, he was dropping an L's down. What do you all think? Do you think he's dropping an L's down, or do you think, that's a point at the comments type of thing? Let's quit recruiting Stokes. He lost to a team manager 4-2. This is coming from Captain Crash. All right, send Stokes out. He lost to a team manager. Jason says that Mo Williams is paying off, and yeah, he's pointing at the comments. I agree. It seems like everybody agrees he's pointing to the comments. I agree with that too. This guy's not going to stop. I like somebody that makes a statement and doubles down on it. That means he believes it. So he's never played in the NCAA. He's a wing. That means he plays off ball. He's overhyped. I guess you probably would have said the same thing about Cooper Flagg or, Cameron Boozer played the point for a lot this year and the wing and the post and everywhere else. And, I guess he was overhyped too. I got a text from someone inside the building with Pope and Mo that said Zoom is a go. I believe that. I do believe that. But like I said, that I believe that that's 100% true. That Zoom probably committed before he left, but they probably want to wait till they talk to maybe Rob Wright and Stokes before that becomes public. But Rip has an interesting question here. He says, do you believe with Louisville's recent success in the portal, it puts added pressure on Pope? Absolutely. I think Pope's at Pope's seat's warm, no doubt about it. I would think. I mean, although he didn't really go after Badunga or that Shellstad or whatever his name is. I do know that he wanted the kid from St. Mary's, but I don't think Pope ever really got a chance to get him on campus, or they did a Zoom call. But I would say if Kelsey would have beat Pope out for the players, it would definitely have added pressure. But yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure anytime when you're the head coach at Kentucky and Louisville, is having success. Now, I think it's good for the sport when Kentucky and Louisville are both good. However, I'm sure Pope's feeling some of that pressure right now. And Pope's going to sleep really, really good when he hears from Stokes that he's coming to Kentucky. And then Crash, he's just said that the guy inside with Pope and Mo said that Zoom is a go, but he said that's not the only commitment he's heard about tonight. And I'm thinking that's got to be Rob Wright. And Gary's still doubling it down. Like I said, I'm not saying any of you guys are lying, but until I hear it from, I see a picture of Stokes hanging on the rim and Rupp. With a lot of the things that are going on right now, and maybe they're not posting the commitments just yet because they're still with Stokes. I'm not sure, but it seems to me like that everybody seems to know that those two have committed, but yet I've not seen it anywhere confirmed. And I'm not going to be the one that confirms a commitment when I don't know the truth. Do I believe they both have committed? Yes, I believe that. But until I see it 100% from somebody who would know, and I'm not saying that you all don't, but I think there's more people out there that know a little bit more than than I do, or we do. Jason, that's what I was trying to say. I, however, did watch the Nike Hoop Summit. I think he was the best player on the floor by far. And I think Slim Jesus was next. I really wish Kentucky could get actively involved with Slim Jesus. And I'm not saying they're not. You just never hear about it. You just never hear about it. I want we talked about this. We talked about the visits coming up with Donnie Freeman, Jalen Cox, Terrence Brown, Guath, Alex Wilkins. We've got several coming. And I think a lot of these, people coming are, some good depth pieces. If we can get Jalen Cox or the Wilkins kid to come off the bench, if we can get Stokes Zoom Diallo and Rob Wright, then I think those are great pieces. This right here, I agree with. I do. But here's the question. If Stokes comes, does he play the 3? Do you move Cam Williams to the 4? If Donnie Freeman don't come, is Cam Williams, is him and Stokes will be the 3? This is what I talked about earlier. I don't agree with that. If you assume that Diallo and Wright have committed and they're going to be your starting guards or your starting backcourt, your first sub off the bench in the SEC cannot be Mason Williams. I don't think so. I'm not saying Mason Williams isn't good or is not going to be really good. I don't know if he's ready for the SEC right now. You have to go get backups. You have to go get depth pieces. And so I think everybody will be quick to say they want Mark Pope to succeed. Well, I want Mark Pope to do so well. He's one of us. He's a Kentucky boy. He won a national championship here in '96. However, but every time somebody commits somewhere else, all I hear from people is another whiff. It's not a whiff if you didn't actively recruit that kid. I don't think, if Stokes goes to Kansas, all right, you can call that a whiff because I think Pope's all in. And also, I'll tell you this, a donor reported, and I can't remember who he told. I think it was a national guy, but they talked to a donor at Kentucky, and he says that if Tyron Stokes does not commit to Kentucky, it won't be for the lack of trying because Kentucky's done everything they could possibly do at this point. They've offered more money than what they set out to offer. They're recruiting around him, basically letting him pick his roster. He said he wanted to play with Zoom and Rob Wright. They go out and get those two. So although you might be able to consider that a whiff for Pope, it won't be for Pope for the lack of Pope trying. No, I don't necessarily think you're negative, Crash, not at all. But I'm just not going to sit here and put all my eggs in the commitment basket, because I think if they'd already committed, I want to see it from somebody within the program. I want to see a Cody Figure boom. I want to see a Kentucky men's basketball put it out. And, you know, I believe that you have somebody from inside texting you. I do believe that. But this recruiting is not, it's not for the faint of heart, I can tell you, because I go from reading one tweet thinking, oh yeah, we're getting all three. Then I read somebody else's tweet. I'm like, how's it 360 degrees opposite? I'm about to boot you, man. This is crazy talk here. Crazy talk. That's crazy talk there. If you all agree with I Love Whining KY Sports that Mason Williams is better than Tyrone, put a 1 in the chat. If he's saying Tyrone, I'm assuming Tyron Stokes is what he's talking about. If you think Tyron's better, put a 2 in the chat. I don't think it's even close. I think he's trying to troll now. I think he's just trying to get a reaction. I think he likes to see his name up on the screen. And that was in an all-star game, Jason. You know, all-star games where a lot of people don't play defense. That game was highly competitive, a close score. And, yeah, they clearly doubled him every time he got the ball. They weren't going to let him go one-on-one. And I agree here. It's a great problem to have. I really do believe that. And this is kind of my approach as Jeff. Keep lining up the visits until we're full and out of money. A quality bench has a room for a few. I agree. And if we run out of money and we have our team and you still got visits lined up, then you respectfully call them back and say, hey, you know, we're going to have to cancel our visit. You know, we've got so-and-so, whatever. Where is that at? Oh, I'm not seeing any 1s in the chat whining KY Sports. I've seen all 2s. But somebody just said, somebody agrees that Mason is a depth piece, but somebody just said, and I can't see where it went. Not yet, Todd. There's been a lot of insiders that have said Boom and Rob Wright have already verbally committed to the Cats. They've not put it out there yet. It's just pure speculation at this point if why they haven't put it out there. And there's been some pretty good people that I trust that have said that they've already committed. But it's almost a done deal with Zoom, and I'd say Wright's a done deal too. I think they're just waiting on Stokes, and I think they'd like to get all 3 of them to commit at one time. My cool sales guy says that he got a text earlier as well about Zoom. Stokes was waiting on Rob. Like I said, I think it was speculated that Rob was going to be here after Stokes has left. But you see the picture on the screen. Stokes is inside of Rupp Arena right now. He was shooting, playing one-on-one. But Rob and Stokes, their visits have overlapped, and I agree. Yeah, Crash, I don't think any I've just always been one of those types of guys that I can hear it from 100 people saying the same thing, but I'm not going to attach my name to it until I hear from somebody affiliated with the university or, and that's more me than it is you. It's not that I don't believe you guys. Where do you get your stuff from, Crash? I doubt he's going to reveal his sources there, Jason. He said he had somebody inside the building with Pope and Mo. So Crash may be Mikael McLean. It may be him himself coming to check us out. But yeah, patience running thin. And I think a lot of Big Blue Nation was in the same boat as you were until Stokes said he was visiting. And I think that kind of changed the whole fan base and got the energy, and I saw somebody referring to Mo Williams earlier as Coach Mo Mentum. Mo's definitely proved to be, because I'm telling you right now, I firmly believe that if Mo wasn't on staff, we wouldn't have got a visit from Stokes. I believe that. I think that's how much Stokes wanted to see how Mo could help his game. Says we easily get a backup point guard. There's plenty of them in the portal. Got to lock in the starting unit first. I agree with this, Mr. Wolfgang. But remember, it's being reported right now the backup point guards are going for $1 million. I think you have to keep that in the back of your mind, when you're shelling out money. But I think at this point, Pope, Kentucky, the donors are going to find the money. Pope knows that this next year will decide his future at Kentucky. I believe that. So I've been told they all want to announce same time publicly. Stokes, Freeman, Wright, and Zoom. Oh, can you imagine that? I'm calling it right now. If all four of them announce at the same time, Tyron Stokes just made it from half court. Y'all want to see this? Hold on. Look at this. And I want you to know, for all the new ones out here, let me get this to you here. Let me remove him. Let me get this up there. Before we go on, I want to remind everybody that we had somebody in our chat just a second ago. Hold on, let me get this off the screen here. Let me get his comment off the screen. But somebody in our chat just made the statement publicly that Mason Williams was better than Tyron Stokes. I don't even think Mason Williams believes that. Let's see what we got to look forward to next year.
Up by one, massive free throws.
No good. Rebound, Devontae. 3 seconds.
Up by.
How good did that look? Not going to lie. That gets me excited. Big Blue Nation gets me excited. Gary still says it's happening now. I will be the first to tell you as soon as I see it. Nothing yet. But how cool is it that Tyron Stokes goes on Instagram Live from inside of Rupp Arena? He's either trolling Big Blue Nation or Kansas Jayhawk fans. Oh, now, Mothman, calm down. Go take you a cold shower. But a lot of people probably won't admit it, Mothman, but a lot of people are probably in the same boat you're in. He's never played against men. Well, before last year, neither had Cameron Boozer. Before 2 years ago, neither is Cooper Flagg. Carly Dennison says, let's go. Heck yeah, I'm with you. Let's go. Stay hot, Mark Pope. Stay hot. Gary, can you put in the chat who Quincy is? I've seen multiple people ask who Quincy is, and I'm not 100% sure who Quincy is. So if you could put it in the chat, I'd appreciate it. Holly, I'm not even joking. I might cry. Crash, if you're going to cry, I will bring you on the stream and I will stream it live, and we can have your initial reaction. I will send you the invite. We can have your initial reaction for when they commit. It's always funny how some people don't check social media regularly or refresh every 2-3 minutes. You get on there and look, and it says, check out Stokes' Insta Live. He's shooting hoops inside Rupp Arena, when that was reported literally 30 to 45 minutes ago. Now, come on, Chris. Don't get greedy. Don't get greedy. We're getting Zoom right in Stokes and Freeman. I'm gonna say that. The Rebe, whoever from Connecticut, the big guy from Connecticut. Are you aware that Olivier Roux, the 6'7" kid from Florida or whatever, was ranked higher than him? I'm not so sure we want him. I'm not sure. I will take him, though. And then, of course, if we can get this Mom Chilovich or whatever from Iowa State, holy moly. Holy moly. It was a couple hours ago that he got the Zoom as a go text. All right. You know, and that's what a lot of people don't realize, that, you know, Brian, I'd be quick to argue that 2015 Kentucky team was the best team in the country. 38-1, but they didn't win a national title because, like you said, it's not a 7-game series. You know, it's a single elimination. Everybody can have a bad night. Remember John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins' team in 2010, how bad of a shooting night they had. And I think that's when Joe Mazzulla looked like an all-star for West Virginia, I believe. But I need some of you guys to do me a favor. We got 280 plus people on here watching right now. I jumped up 138 subscribers last week. I really like to get to 500. I'm at like 337, I believe. If you don't follow me or subscribe to this channel, please do so for me. Please like and subscribe. I see a lot of new names in the chat. Captain Crash, please subscribe. My Cool Sales Guy, Jeff, Holly, KY Till I Die. If you all don't subscribe to the channel, please do so for me and help me out. I'm trying to get the channel to grow, and it helps change the algorithms and things about more people seeing it when you start getting it out there a little bit more. Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. This guy's saying that they wanted to do it earlier, but most family are hours behind us. They want to do it when Pacific family for Wright, Zoom, and Stokes can see it and hear it. Now, that makes sense. All three of those guys, well, yeah, all three of those guys are coming from the West Coast. And there was some confusion earlier on Twitter because it got to be three. Somebody reported that Wright would be on campus at 3 o'clock, but they didn't put West Coast time or Mountain, Central, East. They just put 3 o'clock, and it got to be 3 o'clock, and people were looking and like, why hasn't anyone putting pictures of Rob Wright on campus? You know, where is he? Did he come? Did he cancel? Where's he at? Thank you. And what they forgot to mention was it's 3 o'clock West Coast time, 6 o'clock Pacific time. So what my cool sales guy just said makes a lot of sense. I mean, they may be wanting to talk to family on the West Coast before they decide to make it official. Thank you, Holly. I'm pretty brand new. I do a lot of stuff with Kentucky. I basically started as a high school sports channel, focusing on the 9th and 10th regions, which is the northern Kentucky area. But when the high school basketball season ended, I enjoyed doing it. I was getting a lot of positive feedback. I had like 200 and some subscribers just from the high school season. And, you know, I started trying to do some Reds stuff, and I still will, but the Reds community is a little bit tougher to break. I've done some really good pieces on the Reds. I did a show with the guy that plays Mr. Red, and I thought it was really good. But it just seems like the Reds community, you know, not as easy or don't want to get online and talk about the game like the BBN. There's no better group than BBN. Yeah, it'd be 7 where they are now. That is true. Hey, I'm Jimmy Jam from the Loyal BBN Fan Show. Hey, Jimmy, if you'll comment on this after the show in YouTube, let me know where, and I'll follow you. Give me a like and follow, and we'll do it, you know, right back, and I'll tune into yours. I love watching anything I can on BBN. Yeah, Card Informer. Yeah, we shared it on Twitter. He was shooting, playing. Somebody said he played 1-on-1 against one of the student managers and lost 4-2. But somebody just said the West Coast Cats. I like it. Actually, Todd, I believe Neek's son committed somewhere already. Somebody in the chat will tell us where he committed. I did see if, and I know this, is a Kentucky show, but former Kentucky commit Carter Knox is going to be taking a visit to Louisville. Also saw he was also in Crocs and one of them was broke. That's great. And it's that's funny. But yeah, I also heard that Coach Cal at Arkansas was going to try to get Jasper Johnson in for a visit. Don't know the truth of that. That may just be Cal's way of getting another dig at Kentucky. Although I think most of Big Blue Nation would have gladly passed on Jasper after this season. And I don't think a lot of it, the Jasper fatigue, I don't think a lot of it was necessarily his play on the court. I think, his family and a lot of their comments on social media just got old after every game, because I watched every game and I just didn't see anything where Jasper, in the few minutes he got, I'm not so sure Jasper did a whole lot to earn any more minutes. Couldn't handle the ball real well. He was forcing shots wasn't falling. And, I like Jasper, but I appreciate you, man. I really do. It says, do you all think we should shoot 25 threes a game with this team? I don't think we shot 25 threes last year a game. Did we? Did we shoot 25 threes a game last year? I thought we shot a lot less than what Pope wanted to, but it's because we didn't have the personnel. And I know you're thinking, well, Wright and Diallo aren't great shooters, but if they can get downhill and get to the rim, we don't have to shoot a lot of threes. But familiarity breeds contempt, and that was where there was plenty both ways between Cal and Blue. And I agree with that. I think, but also think once Cal got the lifetime contract, which I never thought that was a great idea, I'll be the first to tell you I wanted Cal to stay because I was worried about what we are seeing right now. I was worried about Kentucky. Pope being kind of a West Coast guy, I didn't know how he would relate to a lot of the recruits. I didn't know if he'd be able to sign a lot of the big name recruits just because of his system and how he plays. It takes a special kind of player to fit into that system. And I think we saw that this year that we didn't have. And honestly, I was worried about recruiting. I wasn't necessarily worried about the X's and O's because I think Pope is a, I think Pope's a kind of a basketball, like an offensive genius. No, you're going to say, yeah, right. Look at this year. He's anemic. And I think that's where he went wrong. The pieces he recruited last year, the pieces he signed didn't fit his system. Yeah, I think so too. I think he's purposely trying to rage bait. But yeah, I think, you look at, and I said it at the beginning, I think a small percentage of our fan base, when there's people out there saying, and I think Matt Jones has said it, that we as a fan base have a very small percentage that is very toxic. And I know it seems like a lot more than a small percentage because, as I said, the biggest mouth gets fed or the loudest voice gets heard. A lot of Big Blue Nation, think about it. I say a lot of the Big Blue Nation, especially the ones who have those season tickets down low, they probably don't even have social media. They probably don't even have Twitter. But, then we talked about how the Kentucky Banner boys, I think they've kind of united the fan base this week. They've kind of started a revolution around Lexington and kind of got some excitement around the program, and I really like it. I really do think next year, I think our defense will be a little bit better than what it was this year. And one of the things this year was, and you saw it from a Kentucky standpoint, when we got out in transition this year, I thought we were really, 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 really good. It's when we couldn't get out in transition that we struggled to score in the half court. But I think with some of the players we're getting, and I know Zoom, Zoom likes to get to the basket, and he's a strong physical guard. Somebody in the chat says he plays a lot like Oweh. That may not be a bad comparison. But, you know, I just love this energy. Let's go. I love it. I love it. He said, I should stop calling players trash. I will stop. I appreciate it. I'm just not going to bring any attention to it if I see it, but I would appreciate it. And I think this is where we all are. I just want the best players. We do too, but, you know, the 290 plus people that are currently on this podcast right now aren't going to decide who we get anyhow. We got to trust Mark Pope and his coaching staff. And if you don't trust Pope, give Mo Williams a chance. This is the reason why they brought him on. For all the stuff I heard about Jason Hart last year and how he was the #1 recruiter for Dink Pate and Tyron Stokes. And, you know, I get all that. But let's give Mo Williams a chance. Let's give Pope a chance here. He's got a chance to do something epic, and let's trust that he's going to do it. Let's hope he can tie him down. Jason Carter says Rob shot over 40% from 3 last year. I thought I saw that, but I couldn't remember if that's what I saw. But I've heard so many people say that Rob and Zoom don't have good jump shots, so I couldn't tell if I was getting confused. Let's go Mo. That's right. It was funny when I kept seeing people kept saying UK had the momentum. And I agree with this. And we talked about this the last podcast. You know, I think the one thing we can say, you know, we don't see a lot of the stuff that Keegan Brown does because a lot of that stuff's behind the scenes. But I'm a firm believer that we would have paid $4 million plus for Colin Chandler to return next year, if not for Keegan Brown, or $3 million, whatever it was. I think we can get 2 people in the portal for $1.5 million that can produce what Colin did. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think Keegan Brown has really put together a list of players that really fit their system for the amount of, for value, and that's what he targets with that triangle we talked about. Appreciate you, my guy. Hey, if we get commitments, I'll be back on here again tomorrow night. I ain't gonna lie. Well, and I think today's game, Todd, I think you got to have those. Shooters. That seems to be what the game's turned into. And, you know, I'm not so sure last year. Chandler made a lot of, I think he shot 41% and made a lot of clutch threes. But, you know, when Cam Williams was hurt, you know, all we heard about was, you know, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Pope came out and said preseason that Trent Noah was the best shooter he'd ever saw. And I don't remember the last time Noah hit one. That's a good question. I'm going to say yes, because I think Pope would have started him regardless. I think Pope felt a sense of loyalty to his players, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but Chandler's been with Pope for multiple years, and I think there were times this year or last year when I didn't think Pope or Chandler should have played or started, and he did. So I think he would have started, but I don't think he should have, if that makes sense. So I'm still going to miss Air Mormon. A lot of fun to watch, and while inconsistent, his highs were truly impressive. Yeah, I think that hits the nail on the head. I think his highs were truly impressive. You know, just think about it. The winning plays he made against Arkansas and Tennessee were on the defensive end. Got 2 big steals, passed up ahead. In the Tennessee game, I think he passed up ahead for Oweh for an and one. And then I think against Arkansas, he threw it up ahead to Oweh for a dunk. I agree with this 100%. I do agree with this one. I'm saying what I think Pope would have done. I think he definitely would have started him. But if you want to say that's what Cal did, yeah, he also did it with DJ Wagner over top of Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham. You know, DJ started at the beginning of the year in Arkansas this year before he finally went to the bench. The difference is at Arkansas, he wasn't afraid to sit him. at Kentucky, he stayed loyal to him. And I saw where Wagner's in the portal, and I think he's taking a visit. Did I see Villanova? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Wagner may have something cooking with Villanova. If you saw that or if you've seen that or heard that, let me know. My phone's blowing up from all my inside sources, and they did point out something that I've heard. They said Jeff Goodman's been kind of hard on Tyron Stokes, nothing to do with his game. They say at times he's got poor body language, and, his poor body language is, kind of detrimental to his team, but thinks his personality could also run all over top of Pope. So, and we know if you got some guy that you let one guy do that, it can kind of run the whole team. So I've heard that about his body language before. However, I still want him. I still want to give him a chance to see it. Stokes had 3,000 people watching him play on Instagram Live when he hit that half court shot. There were 3K. Wow. And it's crazy to think about. But what else does Big Blue Nation have to do on a Monday night? Nothing. I think that's what makes us a great fan base. That's what makes us passionate. A lot of other fan bases don't care. I saw a while ago where there was a coach complaining that he only had $200,000 to spend in NIL money. And I started thinking, what kind of roster could Kentucky put together with $200,000? I agree, Holly. I'm not a big Goodman fan, but, he does have a lot of sources and inside people. I don't think he likes Kentucky a whole lot, so I think he bashes every chance he gets. But Jason says, Nike Hoop Summit, for example, Stokes was the main ones pushing for his team to defend and go score, trying to get them going. Yeah, I think he's a leader. I think he'll lead by example. I think, and I think other people want to play. I think the greatest quality about Stokes is I think players want to play with him. And I've seen it in past where star players didn't have that. Captain Crash says, I was fine with Goodman, but if Holly's against him, so am I. That's funny. Can we do a first ever stay hot first date or something? Can we go on a blind date? Unless Captain Crash already knows Holly, or unless you're both married or something. If you're both married, forget I said it, but can we do a stay hot dating game? I will say this, and some of y'all may have seen this, but it was 45 minutes ago. I'm just now seeing it that never mind. Y'all ever heard of ball sack sports? Have y'all ever heard of ball sack sports? They purposely put stuff out there to try to throw you off. Well, John Rothstein has a parody called Not John Roth. He said sources say the Wisconsin transfer John Blackwell is committed to Illinois. But that's from a parody account, so don't put any stock in that, or don't say that I reported that. There's people saying that on the Insta Live that Stokes looked awful happy and at home, that maybe it's Rob that's undecided. I'm not switching up. I don't believe that. Chris, have you ever heard of Ball Sack Sports? They had a Twitter account, and they would basically and like big name reporters would read their tweets online. I'm talking about like TNT NBA games, say that group on TNT, they would read tweets, and sometimes they would cite their Twitter account, and it was called Ball Sack Sports. And I thought, I just remember them basically trying to throw people off, and I just thought their name was funny, Ball Sack Sports. There you go. The Toddcast coming through. Stephen A. reported a ball sack tweet on First Take. I would like to have been with Stephen A. when he realized that he'd been ball sacked. I think that would have been funny. But, all right, guys, it's been about an hour and a half. It's going to be a long night. If you're waiting up with BBN for a commitment, I admire you. I'm going to be up with you, but I can't be online. I've got to get up. I've got to get ready for work tomorrow. But if I'm telling you right now, if there is commitments tomorrow, we'll make some time tomorrow night for a live. I think my daughter's got a softball game tomorrow evening, but I'll be home at some point in time. And if some of you all want to come on and talk with me, I can send you the link, the invite, and we'll just have a big old party on here. But, you know, I love talking sports with each and every one of you. I love each and every one of your all's insights, although I may not agree with everything you all say. I do like the banter. I do like the conversation. So stay up, say a few prayers, have good thoughts and vibes for Big Blue Nation that Pope can seal the deal. And I'm looking forward to being on here tomorrow night with a few commitments. So until then, stay hot.
Are you ready? Well,